Hey everyone, welcome to Blooming Change. This is rebloom.news' weekly interview series where we interview people who we believe are making a positive impact in the world of sustainability. Just as a reminder, rebloom.news is a weekly newsletter that offers advice, inspiration, and actionable items to live more consciously with the planet, and you can subscribe below. So today we're talking with Madeleine. Hey.
Hi.
We're talking about sustainability and impact investing. So Madeleine works for a private equity firm in California and is on a team of women heading the sustainability and impact investing sector. So Madeleine, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about what you do?
I would love to. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. This is quite the honor. So my name is Madeleine Stockton. Like Meredith said, I work at a private equity company called the Stepstone Group in California. My focus is our responsible investing initiative, which covers ESG and now impact investing, which is exciting to announce. I work in the IR marketing team. I do a lot of different things. I wear a lot of different hats, but it's been really wonderful so far. So that's like a little bit of intro about me.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited to connect with the woman who works in finance because I feel like a lot of times women take a backseat in their financial growth. So I'm really excited to talk a little bit about how women can step forward and feel more confident investing and how we can do that in a focus on sustainability investments. So just to start out as like an overview, if people are watching this and they're like, I don't even know what private equity is, can you tell us a little bit about the difference in private equity and public investing, and then what actually sustainability and impact investing really means?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. When I tell people that I work in private equity, usually they say, what is that? So it's a very good question, and don't fault yourself for not knowing. So there's two types of markets. One is public and one is private. So public is what most people think of when they think of the markets, right? So when you hear on the news, oh, the markets aren't doing well, or the markets are doing great, that's what they're talking about. So that basically means that normal people like you and I could go out and buy a few shares of Apple and we could be part owners of that company. So basically it's allowing the normal common folk, for lack of a better term, to basically buy shares of a company and be partial owners. So that's sort of like the public investing. It's very open to anybody. Anybody can get involved. Private is a different story. So private markets generally deal with companies that haven't gone public yet, which means they aren't open to the common person to buy shares and become part owners. Public companies are, like I said, easier to get into. Private is not, and that's where private equity and venture capital comes in. So private equity firms and venture capital firms will give money to these companies so they can expand or grow their business without yet becoming public. So it's a lot harder to get into for the common people. Some high net worth individuals who have like quite a bit of money are able to get into that sphere, but it's mostly run by private equity and venture capital.
Gotcha. And then when you're talking about sustainability and impact investing, what does that mean with the private equity?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the space is rather new. So the definitions are kind of coming into formation as time goes on, but most people in the market define impact investing as investing that does some measurable amount of good for, socially or environmentally, and also is focused on returns. So you kind of think of it as a spectrum. You have traditional investments that don't really worry about impact for social aspects or environmental, and then you kind of shift in your spectrum over to impact being, okay, we're looking at making a lot of money, but also doing good. So impact I like to think of is the best of both worlds. You're looking to help people and the environment, and you're looking to make actual financial returns, which is a little bit different than like traditional philanthropy, right? Like giving money to people, to nonprofits to do something good. That's one way to give back. Impact investing is actually focused on making returns for yourself as well.
Gotcha. I feel like that's like a very big shift in mindset versus, in the original financial world where you're just like knock down who's ever in your way to make the investments to get the return, right? And now it's like, oh, we can actually help the planet too. So I see this as a big positive moving forward, that people with all of these huge accounts, right, they're actually aiming their money towards making an impact, which I think is a huge shift, which is really important to talk about. And I'm really excited that we're diving into this. So those environmental investments that we're talking about,
Yeah.
How do they perform compared to the traditional investments from what you've seen so far?
This is a great question. So there's been a lot of studies on this because a lot of people in the finance world have been very skeptical. It's something that's newer and people aren't used to, like you said, having that mindset of using capital to help people and the world, versus a traditional mindset of, what you see on Wolf of Wall Street, where it's like not done to anybody and everybody to make a return. Um, so yeah, like, to be honest with you, it's newer. Like I said, a lot of funds have actually been proving to be performing really well, especially during COVID. So it's been interesting. There's been an uptick in studies and news during the pandemic, which has been fascinating, because a lot of people are realizing that there is a lot of risk analysis that a lot of companies weren't doing. Nobody saw this coming, right? Nobody took this into account in their investments, and the people that did are performing really well. Same goes for climate change. If one day Florida's underwater and you've made a whole bunch of real estate investments on the Florida coast, you're going to lose a lot of money, right?
Mhm.
So I think they're performing very well. Short answer, they're performing well. They're performing at market rates, which is awesome. I do think that eventually they will be outperforming because, like I said, climate is huge, and if temperatures increase even 2 degrees, we are looking at a very different world, and we're looking at a world that needs a lot of different solutions. And I think early investors in those types of solutions, or have thought about risk in a different way, are eventually going to be outperforming. But it takes time, and a lot of these investments are new, so right now they're outperforming, and a lot of people are kind of shifting their mindset lately of, wow, this pandemic hit and we really weren't ready for anything like this, and we didn't take into account any of this risk analysis in our investment process, and maybe we should start doing that going forward, and maybe impact investing is a good idea. Maybe we should be investing in people and the climate, and maybe this is a good time to, everyone keeps saying this, and quote unquote rebuild better, which I genuinely believe is huge, and it could be, this is an awful pandemic, but this could be something that positive that comes out of this, of really like shaking us awake and saying like we can do better, and like we can look at investing and using money better.
Definitely. I think this time is being coined as like the awakening. Like everyone is waking up to social issues, the climate crisis. I think this is just gonna, and things are speeding up so
Right.
quickly. So I think people that are aware of this now, if they're looking at their investments, it will probably be really good in the next few years, because it's going to happen. The climate crisis is here. It's happening
Here.
faster than we think, and
Yes.
yeah, it's on a way. But so as far as you and I go, right, as individuals and like people watching this video, how can I invest in companies that I believe in? I know we talked a little bit about the public market and things like that. Can you give any advice on how we could invest to help our planet and think about that way, in that way?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. So the type of impact and sustainable investing, in public markets is new. So I do think that there are quite a few opportunities, and I know you and I kind of touched on this a couple weeks ago when we chatted, but there are a couple of platforms that are offering impact or ESG investments that you can sign on to your robo advisor and click that you want those and you prefer those types of investments. That's one way that's becoming a little bit more commonplace. Um, like I said, they're newer, and some financial advisors are a little touchy about it. I mean, I suggest it. I think it's awesome. I do think it's something to keep your eye on.
Hmm.
Another good way, and I'm sure a lot of people give this advice, is our purchasing power is powerful. Like, when you spend money, you are basically controlling who's in business, right?
Hmm.
So I like to think of it as, you have this money, and if you're going to spend it, don't spend it at companies that are ruining the climate, that have modern slavery in their supply chains, that are, have terrible labor practices. One of the great things about living in this time is the media is all over this kind of stuff right now, and you can Google and you can see the negative PR that comes up. So don't, like, use your purchasing power for good. Use it at companies that are doing good, or at least aren't doing as bad, right? Like, I mean, you want to be, sometimes it's a little bit out of your control, and not every company is up to speed on the climate crisis, but you can at least be using your money in a way that's not doing as much harm.
Yeah, definitely. I always say vote with your dollar. I
Yes.
think that's definitely the best mindset coming out of this. And I love the idea of, so we were talking a little bit about Elvest and Wealthfront and these investment accounts that are robo accounts that can go in and invest a lot of money for you. So if you're watching this and you're like, oh, I want to start an investment fund, I don't know how, I don't want to be like, you know, go in there and sell stocks all the time and be so aware of it, you can actually go into, I have Wealthfront, and you can go in and say, oh, I want to invest in clean energy, in, solar. And I mean, in the US, wind is supposed to take over in the next 3 years. So I've been looking at a lot of wind powered investments because the whole East Coast is on track for having wind energy. So like that would be a great investment for people that are aware of the shift to clean energy, because it's happening, and it's amazing the way that we're shifting out of it. So yeah, and I think on a big scale, like if you want to invest, sure, that's an easy way to do it. And then small scale, vote with your dollar, be conscious about what you buy.
Yeah,
So
and that's actually like another point too is so I truly believe that the finance industry and the business industry in general is going to be forced to play a role in the climate crisis. I think that there's the way that our society is set up, there's no way around that. So another thing too, like when you're talking about voting, is you want to be conscious of local elections and obviously federal elections too, because they create policy that businesses have to abide by. So we want the government to be creating policies that basically corporations have to follow. So greenhouse gas emissions, toxins, that kind of forms the base layer for what companies have to do. So if you are conscious of that and you're looking at platforms of people who are running for local office, city elections, state elections, federal elections, like that's big, and you want to be able to vote people into power who are taking this seriously, because it's a big deal.
yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, things are shifting. And I think a lot of people that are turning 18 and can vote between now and this next election are really going to be the voice and the power that's going to, hopefully raise us up and get someone in there that, believes in the Paris Agreement and believes in the climate crisis and things that are so evident in our world, and is taking measures to help shift it. So I see that in our future. I think what you're saying about the financial industry being a huge part of it, I do believe it. I think having this awareness, like I think a lot of people would think, oh, Rebloom is doing an interview about finance. Like what would that be about? And it's the fact that money, we live in a capitalistic society, right? Money rules. And it's really important to know where big money is being invested and how we can support small businesses and, businesses that actually are helping the planet and making a positive impact. So amazing information. Thank you so much for sharing. Is there any last words you want to share with everyone about any advice you'd have for someone, a young woman watching this, and any advice you'd have for her about investing?
Yeah, and I know that this is becoming a more commonplace advice, and I know you and I touched on this, but investing is so important. I cannot emphasize this enough for young women. It is so paramount to success. Like you said, we do live in a capitalistic society, and money is power, and money talks. And there are many platforms that are aware of this. Like you said, Elevest, they're really big on this. If you don't invest, you're actually increasing the wealth gap between men and women, because men are doing it. And I'd like to think that we're more than capable enough to just do it as well. Something that someone told me once that really stuck with me is like, you deserve the same opportunity and spending power as a man. And I truly believe that. So if you have extra money, invest. Like it's so easy now. You just need an internet connection. Like you said, Wealthfront, Elevest, a lot of places don't even make you like have minimum amounts in your balance. So please invest. It's important. And I really think that you won't regret it. It's a good move. So that's my last final piece of advice for young women out there. It's important.
Amazing. Start with $40. Start with $50. Like it doesn't have to be a lot. Like that little bit. Like
it makes a difference.
Yeah, don't buy that fast fashion t-shirt.
No.
Let's sit there and put it in an investment account and see what happens with your money. I just
Yeah.
think that that's the biggest eye-opening thing. When I started doing that, I was like, oh, like, wow, like, look
Yeah.
what this can do. It's a
Mhm.
big shift. So I hope that we have inspired you today, whoever's watching this, and hopefully you take a look at your own investments and how you can help the planet and all that good stuff. So thank you so much, Madeleine, for joining us. And I can't wait to share you on the platform.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.